So this should be a really, really fun conversation. And I'm always astonished when we're live. I'm always astonished when that technology actually works for me, Aviva. I have to say, like, I almost have a heart attack when it actually works. It doesn't go down. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So I'm really, really happy to have you. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post today, but I was like, it's always fun when I get to like talk to people from the neighborhood. I feel like I'm doing a Sesame Street. Who are the people in your neighborhood? Anyway, so I'm very excited to introduce Aviva, who's a person in my neighborhood. And Aviva, I met Aviva because she was doing a lot of work on body image and eating disorders, which, as you can well imagine, somehow affects women's sex lives or vice versa. So Aviva's a licensed social worker, and over the years she was doing that. She's kind of morphed now, and she's doing a lot about for mothers and parents, and she'll talk about that. And she's a photographer, an amazing, amazing photographer. So we're gonna talk about that too. So there's like all this stuff to talk about, and I'm really excited, Aviva.
Me too. Thanks, Matcha.
I feel like we never have a chance to talk. This is like Aviva and I were like, oh, you're going to live on Facebook? I'm like, this is my opportunity to actually talk to women from the neighborhood that I never get to talk to. So it's amazing. So let's start with your journey, kind of like what made you go into dealing with eating disorders and body image. And let's start with that.
Okay. So I don't always disclose, but I did have my own experience dealing with binge eating disorder when I was in my later years of high school and into college. And I saw a therapist. I will say her name because she's really helped me change my life and inspired me to go on and do this work. Her name is Marianne Cohn. She's written some great books, and she's been heading up the New York Center for Eating Disorders for like over 30 years. And so she's really inspired me to go on and do the work. And so I just basically set out on a journey when I was at NYU in getting my master's in social work. I graduated in 2005, and I knew I wanted to do postgraduate training at the Women's Therapy Center Institute, and really understand the feminist relational perspectives on eating and body, because I felt like if you just kind of focus on CBT or DBT or other, which can be very effective, I think that we need to also kind of like explore some other
perspectives.
Right, exactly.
Totally. Yeah. So that's what made you get into it to start with. And you and I have shared also as somebody else with an eating disorder, although I laugh that we're disclosing this because probably 90% of women I know have the eating disorders of some form or other.
Yeah.
And also that I worked with Carol Munter from Overcoming Overeating. Yes. So you and I have had conversations about this. And then you got really into this intuitive eating thing, right?
So
can you just talk about that and describe it?
Sure. So Carol Munter, Jane Hirschman, I've met through my institute. Like they have, Lela Zafiropoulos, who was my supervisor at my institute, she wrote, and we can talk a little bit later about, prevention, for advice for moms and of young daughters or kids in general on prevention of eating disorders. But so their book, Overcoming Overeating, I think is their book, right?
Yes, Carol Munter, yep.
Mm-hmm. When women stop hating their bodies, they're two like amazing books that I read while I was in the training program. And so intuitive eating, so a lot of our focus at the Women's Therapy Center Institute is on trying to live within our bodies in a culture where women are always told that they should not be, that they should not be comfortable doing that. They should not feel, and as you know, Sheva, you work a lot with women dealing with their either denial of or like uncomfortable feelings around pleasure. So I work with women around, issues they might have feeling pleasure through eating and food. And so, sorry, where did we start off? So
I started talking a little about intuitive eating because I feel like not everybody who's watching knows what that is, and I feel like that's a little bit. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a little central to the work that you've done and are doing.
Yeah. So, but when we talk about bringing in feminist theory and feminist therapy, the work that I do, I think a lot of that, a lot of the women I've studied under, they've all kind of just come out of the feminist movement and decided that we have to be anti-diet. We need to have a new approach to dealing with bodies, dealing with eating. And so intuitive eating is basically being very, it's kind of like what it sounds like. It's basically being very in tune with your body, trying to work on, what I do with the women that I see basically is work with them on learning how to really feel when they're feeling hunger and satiation, and to try not to eat past that point of satiation, and to really learn how to enjoy food in the right way. Now, I just want to point out, Batsheva, that intuitive eating there are limitations to intuitive eating. Like if somebody has, is pre-diabetic, because this also goes in line with the healthy at every size movement, that is very much something that my institute is very pro, and I feel strongly about it. At the same time, I think that there are some, I just want to point that out, that if people do have some type of health issue, they need to check with their doctor or see maybe a holistic health counselor and try to figure out how to, in addition to a therapist, to figure out how to work on some of that.
Right. Just spend a minute talking about healthy at every size, because I don't know that everybody gets that either, because I feel like that's kind of a...
Yes. So healthy at every size is a movement that was started, I would say, within the last maybe 10 years or so, where women came together who were seen, let's say, as obese, technically as like, according to the body mass index scale, and said that, look, like you can't blame everything in our society. Like when women are overweight, you can't blame every health problem they have necessarily on weight. And so they've actually proven, like they've brought in evidence, like they've researched this, women in this movement have decided to say, like, this is not necessarily the case. Like you can't always blame things on weight. There could be other factors involved. And so, I just actually today posted on my listserv for my institute, like looking for a list of healthy at every size doctors, because I want for my clients to be able to see who have had eating disorders, and want doctors that really fully understand, what women go through with eating disorders and their bodies, and that they can't really be weighed in the office. Like there's so many things that come into play.
So important. Like I feel like, so having gone through this journey myself, intuitive eating, the St. Carol, the doctors who now, I've lost a lot of weight, but the doctors who just dismissed everything I ever had, a headache, a knee ache, everything I had was because I was overweight. Like there was no, and you just couldn't, nothing, nobody took anything seriously because you were overweight. Like I think people don't understand how hard it is to walk through this world at a size that doesn't match the world's perception of the body and what the body should ideally be. And one of the things that I feel so passionately about at this point, Aviva, is that I don't feel like there's one answer for everybody. There's so many pieces to this puzzle. There's, intuitive eating, learning what your body needs. There's somehow figuring out how to handle binge eating, which is a piece of that. There's, understanding just body sensitivity. Like, I do think some bodies are just more sensitive to, to processed carbs. Like I just think if we ignore the science behind it, that's crazy too.
Yeah.
Exercise, you can do exercise, but that's a really important piece of it. Then there's the stress eating, which is a whole other piece of it. And then there's the hormonal effect, and I think we all get kind of stuck in our little silos, and so it's just so great to have people who are like looking at this from a more holistic perspective. So I think it's great. So why don't we spend a few minutes talking about moms, and because that really is, you've shifted your focus now, right?
Well, so I'll just say that I am still seeing, clients that have eating disorders. I see women that are like struggling with a variety of issues. And one of the reasons that I started to do that, like I'm specialized, I do specialize in working with women who have eating and body image issues, and working with them from the feminist model, but relational model. But I also started seeing just women in general who are experiencing anything from anxiety to depression, issues within their relationships, because all that has come out within the work that I've done with women who have eating and body image problems. So I've decided that I don't want to just pigeonhole myself into doing that work, even though I do enjoy it and I'm skilled in that. I also feel that I'm trained in women's therapy in general and working on women's issues. And I love dealing with relational issues, or like just, kind of helping women to feel okay within their relationships and to work on that. That's become a major focus. And one of the things that I've been doing that I would say it came out of, like a good thing that came out of this crazy time we're living in, is I've started a group. It's always been hard for me to do groups, I felt, until recently, because it's just hard to get people together. So I'll talk about moms in a second, but I was able to actually form a moms group that lasted a good 4 months, which is kind of, I think, like shocking, right? Because it's hard to get moms that have young
Totally. But
children
you're right. Now that you're saying that, it's so much easier to group now over Zoom because
over Zoom, and it's like 8:30, and I had to get my kids to bed, and they had to get their kids, but we had like, we started off with 6 women, and then it was great. And it ran from like, you know, the height of things like in May through the end of September, and I was so excited about it. And these women really connected, and I think it was during a really challenging time for all of us when our kids were home and they weren't in school, and oh gosh. So I think I learned a tremendous amount from that. But I am also running an eating disorder group, you know, kind of eating, it's called Eating and Body Image, you know, dealing during the pandemic. And we've been going also since July, and we've had a very cohesive group, and it's been so great. So I'm currently also open to taking more people for that group, but that's also over Zoom. It's Monday nights, and we have a great group going.
I mean, it has been a really challenging time just because everybody's stress level is so high.
Yes.
So
yes,
because, a lot of like, especially when I look at you guys that have kids at home. I mean, I have kids, but my kids are like gone, you know? So, you know, those of you who have kids at home, like, I just feel like, I don't know how you're doing. I just don't know how you're doing it. And I one of the nurse practitioners who works for me, like, she works 4 days a week, and you know, she never knows on any given week whether her kids are going to be in school or not, and her kids are stressed, and so it's really a complicated time for moms. And you know,
very complicated time. So your question was about moms and
like
working more with moms.
What are the work you're doing with moms with regard to eating? Like, or like, what is the work you're doing, and what are the biggest pitfalls that mothers need to like think about in terms of their kids and eating disorders?
Okay, so well, let's start with the moms. So I've been seeing moms. I've started seeing moms into my practice over the last few years. I lost a few, unfortunately, because they couldn't come into the office, and then they had issues at home, like you're saying, with their kid being home, and they couldn't really talk in individual sessions with me. So, but I actually work really with moms around self-care. So that was what the group was focusing on. How these moms, they weren't women that had eating disorders per se. They were women that really needed to work on their own self-care and how to manage during a time that was really stressful. So what I have written about, and what I really, you know, would like to do more focusing on actually in my practice is, you know, how, like, and I've done education around this, right? I've spoken publicly, you know, to moms, to groups of moms, is, you know, how to prevent eating issues in their young kids, right? And so in 2013, I wrote this article. Ironically, this was the year that I was pregnant with my first daughter, my daughter Livy, and who ended up having celiac, who ended up developing, you know, we found that out when she was 2.5. And I reread my article today because I was like, I really got to go back and give myself my own advice, because it's like really hard when you have a daughter who has food restrictions to say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z that I really believe in. And I'm rereading it. I'm saying we should still do these things, even though she has these food restrictions. But a lot of it is on, you know, the focus of this article was 5 steps to positive body image, what moms can do to feel, to prevent problems later on. And it's very challenging when you and I are talking and we're saying we've had our own struggles, we have daughters, like it's very challenging to kind of like, you got to work through your own stuff, and then you got to prevent stuff with your kid. And it's hard. I'm going to say that it is challenging. But one of the things I pointed out in this article was that, you know, I can't even believe I have a 7-year-old now. And this article came out about 7 years ago where I talked about kids as young as like between 6 and 8 are like looking in their lunch boxes and talking about the fat content, and that it's starting younger and younger. And luckily my daughter, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say it's necessarily because she has me as a mom, but I feel like she doesn't really talk about her body in that way. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of amazing how she just kind of moves around and dances and does gymnastics and like loves that she does art. And I try to really, you know, make her feel appreciated in so many different ways, and the great things that her body can do, which is exactly what I would do if I was working with a mom of a young child. But again, that challenge is there because our society is unkind to moms, especially one of my focuses is on postpartum moms and moms who have kids even a few years later and weight gain. You know, I think that that's a real struggle right now. I've been, you know, recently actually chatting with mom friends of mine about diets that are like moms are doing right now to kind of lose weight very rapidly. And it's very upsetting to me. And I think about children, and if they have children, how their children are seeing this. And so there's a lot of pressure on moms to be thin, and there's a lot of pressure on kids to be thin. So it's sort of like, sometimes there's like a parallel process where the mom has to work on her own stuff and try to help protect their kid from what the perils of what's out there, you know?
Right, because it sort of doesn't matter what you say to your kid, or that matters, but what matters even more is what your kid sees and hears you say about yourself. And so
Exactly.
that just translates
And
down.
that's what it is that we have, like, researchers in the field, like, colleagues of mine have talked about how, if you say I'm ugly, I'm fat, you look in the mirror and your daughter who's standing right behind you, and this is something I think about all the time. They see you saying these things to yourself, right? They're going to learn from home that, like, I should hate my body. I shouldn't love myself fully. And it's a challenge, but I'm always thinking about that in the back of my mind. And I try to really practice what I preach. I mean, I do in my own home with my own daughters.
And you have a certain amount of control, and that matters, but then there's everything else that's going on. So I'm going to shift focus because, of course, the time's flying by, and I actually want to talk about this more, but we may not have time tonight. So, but let's shift focus to your photography, which also touches on a lot of these same things about women and body issues.
Sure.
So Aviva is an amazing photographer. Like, I will just say amazing photographer.
Thank you.
And I just, see yourself on social media. So if you haven't had a chance, and I think you work a little bit as a photographer if people want to get in touch with you for that, right?
Say that again. Sorry.
You work as a photographer, like people could hire you to take.
Yes. I do family portraits. That's kind of my focus, outdoor photography. So not so much during this time of year, but more like in the spring through the end of the fall.
Snow, if you want snow pictures.
Right. No, it's true.
So
I
the intersection of the two sort of came. Well, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you talk
I was gonna actually share with you a little bit about, like, how this even came about, because I actually started doing my own family photos, and I think friends liked it, and every season,
because they're amazing, Aviva.
Thank you. Okay. I appreciate you saying that. But so I started, it was just a fun thing I was messing around with. And I would say, okay, like when I had my first daughter, we would go, and like every season I'd make my family crazy. We're doing, fall pictures, spring pictures, summer pictures, winter, I don't care. We're just going to do our family photo shoot every year. And we have this in our family album every year. And I just love looking at them. And I even made a coaster series one year for my husband of, like, Olivia in the fall, in the winter, in the summer, in the spring, when she was like very little. This was an outgrowth. So 5 years ago, my husband actually helped me start my business. He's a graphic designer, and he helped me come up with the name. And for my birthday that year, he came up with, he helped me with my website and design my cards. And so VVB photography came about, like a buzzing bee. And it's like, my nickname is Vivi, and it was like VVB Braun. And I'm primarily, I would say, I really like shooting outdoors, and that's where that all came from. And so I have to give a lot of credit to Bonnie Geller-Geld, who is fabulous. Bonnie was my inspiration behind the embodiment of Jewish femininity. She and I had a discussion in the summer of, like, July of 2016. It was a challenging year. That was the year my daughter was diagnosed with celiac. And it was a very, very hard time in my life. And somehow she just said to me, you need a personal project. And somehow this just came about. I put it on Facebook. I put out a call. Within 5 minutes, I had 25 responses.
What was the call?
Just to say, I'm starting, a project for women on embodiment, and people are going to write their narratives. And honestly, I didn't even know for sure much of it at first when I started what this was going to become. And it became so much larger, than I thought it could. And I'm heading in the direction of making this into a coffee table book at some point. And I'm still photographing women. So if you want, I can show you a few.
Well, just before you do that, talk about what it turned into, because it really turned into something special. So talk about what the project ultimately became, because I think that's important.
So it became an exhibit where I showcased 15 women between the ages of 13 and 82. And kind of every woman was very candid with me and shared, where they feel they wanted to be photographed in very specific places, whether it was outside or indoors, or where they felt most comfortable in their body. They helped me set themselves up for the photo, which was kind of amazing. And they wrote their own narratives, and I edited them. But, like, they spoke so much from the heart. It was such a powerful project. It moved me to tears. And then it's just been shown in so many different places since then. And
right. But what was your goal? Like, what kind of pictures were you looking for? Pictures that somehow showed them, how their body, just talk of, like, why was the project called Embodiment Project?
Right. Sorry. Yes, I should talk about the title, right? So I actually did not photograph very many women that had, disclosed that they had an eating disorder to me. It was just varying things, varying topics relating to women and body, everything from aging to cancer to, the same thing, kind of
pregnancy, childbirth.
Childbirth. Yeah. Well, I was going to show, I have here my latest photo that that hasn't been in the exhibit. Trying to.
It's beautiful.
So this is a dear friend of mine, Tani, and Tani shared a beautiful story of her struggles with her last pregnancy. She used a donor egg, a surrogate donor. Well, she carried the egg, but I want to make sure I'm correct with that. And she had a baby he's about a year now, last October. And so this is a photo that she told me she really wanted to be in my exhibit. The exhibit was kind of done, and now I'm moving on to doing the book. I'm hoping to move on to do the book, but I did show the photo at the Renfrew conference last year when I exhibited this work. And so again, the focus is not necessarily about eating disorders, but on embodiment and how women feel connected or disconnected from their bodies at various points in their lives.
Right. So I feel like that, I want you to repeat that, because I feel like that is this,
Sure.
This exhibit was about women and how they either feel connected or disconnected to their body at different moments. And I feel like it's so resonant because I feel like we know what that's like. We all have times in our life when we feel really disconnected from our body, and hopefully we also have times when we feel really connected to our body. And like, how do we work within that sphere and kind of pay attention to that so that we can have a life where we're really fully inhabiting our body much more of the time? And I think that that's why this was so powerful. So now I'll let you talk about what was actually in the exhibit. And
that, Sheva, and also I hated every article, I'm not going to lie, that's been in any Jewish publication about women who had eating disorders. I felt something needed to be done, a new discussion had to be had. Like just how it's not always a 50-pound woman who's anorexic and escaping from, an eating disorder clinic, an eating disorder program, and that's kind of what's been written about. The worst case scenario, somebody's almost near death. It's like, there are women that struggle with their body or feel connected. Let's talk about this in a different way. And
there are women who are extremely large by society's current standards who feel really comfortable in their body, and then there's women who are perfectly normal size looking who are struggling every single day that we don't pay attention.
And then you're actually talking to me now. I'm thinking how I need to be photographing more women from that are more would be, I would say, associated with the Healthy at Every Size movement, because I think I need more of that in the Jewish community and more acceptance of that, because I don't feel like there's enough of that. I was gonna share my screen to show one or two. Were we gonna do that? Or
So talk about when that exhibit, before you share the screen, talk about when that exhibit first happened, like when you pulled that first exhibit together, how many photos were in it?
Oh, sorry. So there were 15. And again, women ranged in age from 13 to 82.
Did you have women you photographed and didn't include? And was that tough?
No. I really narrowed it down, and I really talked to every woman that I photographed, and really just like, there were definitely people, and that I was friends with that I had to say no to, that I felt sad about. These are all women that I know. A lot of them are based in Riverdale. This was definitely a kind of a Riverdale project, I would say. And we showed it at the HIR and the Riverdale Y. It was on exhibit.
And the first time was at the JOFA conference, right?
Exactly, in 2017. And then I made it to Limud. I'm like, but I went to Limud, UK. No, but Limud UK through a connection. I think it was through Dina Broer, who I made a connection through her back in 2018. I was like postpartum, and I was just like, but I was so excited to go, and it was so cool to show it there. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so now let's look at some of the photos.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do my
share
best.
Screen.
Sorry.
Everybody's gonna hold on while the technology will work.
Hold on. Sorry.
Some of these photos are just really magnificent. I remember seeing them for the first time at that JOFA conference.
I'm sorry that I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Here we go. Let me go.
That's it.
Here. Okay. So
yeah.
Am I sharing? I'm not sharing it.
Not yet. You have to share at the bottom.
There we go. Okay. This is Yali.
Oh, there we go. Hold on. Wait. Just wait. Okay. I love this picture so much.
So I also love it. Yali's a dear friend. This is a photo of Yali, and it's a little bit cut off. Let me see if I can. Yali's meditating with her daughter in her room. Yali has a degree. She studied meditation and spirituality to teach in schools, and she's very publicly shared her own experience with an eating disorder, and how she felt people would comment about her baby daughter at the time and her body and on her body. And so I just really felt like it was important to show her, you know, connecting with her daughter in this way. And I remember she could tell you, I remember how hard this shot was to get. I mean, her daughter was, oh gosh, how old was she at the time? I can't even remember. I don't
It
even
looks like she's about 8 months or a year.
probably something like that, between 8 months to maybe 9 months. And it was so hard to get her to sit still and to get this shot perfect. And the lighting was hard. But somehow I just caught that moment. And I did some meditation classes with Diali as well. I think she's kind of incredible. She's like one of these jack of all trades. She's an educator. She's now the director of the youth department at the HIR. And so I loved this one. And then I will show you.
It is just really magnificent picture.
Thank you. Let me just see if I can go back. I was going to show you Anne. Hang on a second. Sorry. Okay, I'll go back in here. Just to scroll through a little bit. You know, people from all different, I have a friend who converted. This is a friend who had breast cancer, who chose not to be, she had a double mastectomy at 29. She chose not to be shown because she had the option to do that. This is Adiela Shemtov, who's amazing. And I have her drumming. She's a singer-songwriter. I'm just gonna show this Michelle Jesper. There's a bunch of people from our community. Let me just.
Yeah, no, you could just slow down a little.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just feel like people are watching and it's nice for people to
You're
see.
right. I'm sorry. You're right. That's Anat Sharbat.
Yes.
Rabbanat.
She was one of the rabbis in our shul, right?
Yep. And then I wanted to talk about Anne, because Anne, I love this photo of Anne. I think this is one of the first photos I did of Anne. I don't know if can everyone see it? It's like,
yes, you can totally see it. It's beautiful.
Oh,
it's an amazing photo.
And so this was just so great because she was talking about, you know, Anne sells Mary Kay, and I was like, maybe you'll do something with makeup. And again, just to show you how this was sort of like, I was in her bathroom, I had to put the lighting behind. I don't know, you might even be able to see actually the lighting now that I look at it in the background. It was so hard to get into her bathroom and to get her to talk about like how she wished her daughter would always wear her hair curly, and that particular day she was willing to, and how Sarit, her daughter, is looking on like with this disapproving look in the background, probably about something Anne was wearing. And I just love it. So this one talking about, you know, moms and body image and daughters. And so this one I thought was kind of a great one to show as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share quickly much of this last exciting.
Yes, because you said we'll take a couple extra minutes. Don't feel pressed out.
Yeah,
just,
okay.
Because you said you have like something exciting, and I said you're not allowed to tell me until we're alone.
Right. So what I didn't share with you is that this awesome book, it's available. I don't know if you can see it.
Imperfect.
It's called Imperfect.
Yeah.
I am the professional consultant on this book. If you go to the Take 5 page, this book was part of a series. As you can see, it's also a graphic novel. And it was part of a series that has been started by Anthony Zucker, who is the producer of CSI, the television series. This was a very cool project. It came about because I wrote this article for parents back in 2013, and he found me online. And he said, I want you to be the consultant. And this was like a 3-4 year project that like, till he finally found a publisher. And this is about a woman, a Muslim woman who lives in Las Vegas, who has body dysmorphia. And he wanted me to be the consultant. And he actually took me off the project at one point because he said he wanted her psychiatrist to write, you know, the professional page. And then he brought me back, and it was just a cool experience to be connected to this big time Emmy award-winning producer. I mean, I saved his message on my phone the first time he called and said, I'm the producer of, you know, all the CSI television series. Like, I've never seen your show. I didn't say that, but you know, like, but it was such a cool, it was such a great project.
So he put you, so you were the professional consultant in terms of writing an article, like writing.
I just wrote like 5 tips for parents, things to look out for, like we're talking about now.
Tell us what the 5 tips were.
Oh, okay. So, but I'll also say that this is part of a series of graphic novels written by, in the words of this particular teen that, you know, he's done other ones called Colorblind. He's done ones on school shootings and, you know, drug abuse. Like he's he stopped, you know, doing television production at this point, and he's a writer. So this was just a cool project. So I'll just go back and look at what I wrote because it's been a while. Dramatic weight change can be the first warning sign of an eating disorder. Modeling a healthy relationship with food is crucial. Commenting negatively on one's own body image can lead to development of negative body image. Sometimes being connected spiritually or to a higher power can serve as a protective factor in the recovery process. And if parents suspect their child has an eating disorder, they should seek help sooner rather than later. So
when did you write those 5 things?
Gosh, I can't even remember when this came
Because
out.
the question is, today, if you were writing again, would you pick those 5 things?
I mean, it came out last year. It came out in 2019. So
right, but you wrote it probably a year before that. So
probably. I think so. I think that things haven't changed that much. And I think, I really feel for moms during this time, and I feel for moms. I've always felt for moms and the struggle to really just not be so, it's okay to be imperfect moms. It is. It really is. We're good enough moms is really what we're looking for.
I feel like it's such a great message, and it's such a similar message to what I'm always saying about people's sex lives. Like, it's good. It's okay to have a good enough sex life. It's okay to not have that ridiculous. It's the same thing. We have these ridiculous, glossy, unrealistic views of what people's sex life should be or what we should look like. So
yeah,
I think the work you're doing is super incredible, and it's been fun having this conversation.
Yes.
So I'm so glad. So stay on. I'm disconnecting the live. Before I do that, can you just tell people if they want to follow you or where to find you, like where?
Yes. So my website is www.avivabraunlcsw.com. Sorry. You can also look at my photography website. It's
VVB photography.
Photography.com. Yes, if you want to see some of the work I've done with families and my exhibits up there, as well as if you want to really, I would really recommend people read the narratives. You need to take the time to read what people have written about their.
Right, they're very moving. They're really very moving, and they go well with the pictures. And how about on social media? Are you on social media under Aviva Braun or not so much?
I am on Facebook. Yeah, I have an Aviva Braun LCSW page. I need to be more active on there, but yeah.
There's so much to do, like we're at home and you have a kid home. So yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being part of this, and I'll catch you around the neighborhood. But
yeah, sounds good.
Stay tuned here.